Let's face it, folks. The Vikings were terrible in 2021, at least on defense. Coaching staff was in shambles. We got a whole new year to look ahead of us in 2022. But which players on the Minnesota Vikings need to prove it so they're a part of the Minnesota Vikings future beyond 2022? All that next. Hello, Viking fans. I'm going to do a giveaway. I'm going to describe it to you. I'm going to give away $100 worth of merchandise of your choosing. If I get to 1,000 subscribers, 75 if I get to 750, 50 if I get to 500, 25 if I get to 250. I'm going to choose one person from an episode. So I'm going to choose an episode, and I'm going to choose one person as long as they're liked, subscribed, and commented. And you can do multiple comments, multiple entries. You can actually go back to my old videos and do that too. Those will be eligible. Now, I'm going to choose that on game day against the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to choose one. Hopefully, it's $100, and I have 1,000 subscribers. Skol Vikes. Welcome, Skol brothers and sisters, to another edition of Minnesota Sports Talk. I'm your host, Dave. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Skol World. Now, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings and who needs to prove it for 2022. Before I get started, if you could do one thing for me, maybe two things, maybe three things. Go down, click subscribe, leave a comment. That helps me beat the YouTube algorithm to get me out there and get this community growing. I appreciate everything you do for me. Now let's get started with which Vikings need to prove it for 2022 so they can be on the team 2022, 2023, and beyond. Now I'm going to start backwards, moving to number one. I'm going to start with number 10. The guy who really doesn't need to prove it. That's why he's low on this list. He's been good. Everybody knows it. He can be a top guy in this league. He's won Player of the Month a couple of times. It's Kirk Cousins. However, they still think he needs to prove it. And a little truth to it, we need to win games. We need to win playoff games. We need a better than 500 record or below 500 record. We need better than that. We need to win 12 games this year. Prove it to me, Kirk Cousins. That's my number 10. I wanted to add a coach onto this, Kevin O'Connell, but I'm going to stick to players just because there's a few guys that need to be on this list and I didn't want to leave anybody off. And I wanted to whittle it down to top 10. I could say there's guys that are a little, on the bubble and to make the team that need to prove it, but those are obvious ones. I'm talking about players that are established that maybe have some things going against them or had a mediocre season and need to prove it to stay on this team beyond 2022. Number 9, Eric Kendricks. With a large contract looming, will the Vikings want to keep Eric Kendricks? Do they want to go younger? They want to build through the draft? People in PFF especially said he had a mediocre season last year. I thought he played well. He was still pass protecting as good as anybody. Pass protecting. I mean, defending against the pass more than, just as good as anybody still. He's that type of player. He's all over the field. However, some people are still pretty down on him. I think the bigger issue was his contract and his age, whether or not the Vikings want to put that money towards a middle linebacker. That isn't the most, sexiest position in a 3-4 defense. So that's my number 8, Eric Kendricks, prove it year for the Minnesota Vikings. Or number 9, sorry. And then number 8, I'm going with a guy that showed some promise. He's now switching outside linebacker. He has played DN and outside linebacker in college. I think he can do it. I think this defense actually works for his the things he's able to do. He's a very flexible player, and that's djwonnum. 8 sacks last year. I think he is going to prove it that he is the guy that can step up, especially if we're going to lose, Zadariussmith next year, because he doesn't really got a long contract. It's a 1 year with team control. So that's a guy that he might want to step up, be a cheaper option going forward for the Vikings. If he can prove it this year, that could mean a lot of good things for the Minnesota Vikings. Number 7, it's a contract year for this guy, Alexander Mattison. Is he gonna be a big free agent for the upcoming season? He is playing for a contract. He's going to be out of Minnesota, especially Dalvincook is healthy through this year. If one of our backup running backs step up, Alexander Madison's the expendable one. I don't think he sees a second contract with the Minnesota Vikings, but for him, it's a prove it for the future. Now, hey, if Dalvin Cook, something happens to him and Alexander Mattison balls out, he's also proven it to be on the Vikings and beyond. Now, number 6 is Dalvin Tomlinson. He's average at best this past year for the Vikings. He was our big free agent acquisition. We were excited about him. He's got a lot to prove if he wants to stay a Minnesota Viking. That's Dalvin Tomlinson. Number 5. This is kind of a shocker for you, I think. This guy was a second-round pick. He was supposed to be a tackle for us for the future. We drafted Darrisaw, took the left tackle position. So this guy was no longer a tackle, and he's been filling in at guard, and now he's our starting guard for good, hopefully. But I think he's still got a lot to prove, and that's Ezra Cleveland. He is, again, an average at best guard. I think his natural position is tackle. He could be our swing tackle, but we need a guy at guard. He could have started a left tackle. I've said this before, but it was a smart move getting Darrisaw because it makes us that better, that deeper of a team, and allows us to move an Ezra Cleveland to guard. However, he's been average. I hope to goodness he improves. Ezra Cleveland needs to prove it this year. That's number 5. Number 4, needs to prove that we did the right thing in the offseason, gave this guy big money, and that's Zadariussmith. So far, I like what I see. He's a leader. Everybody loves this guy. He's making Daniellehunter happy. They seem like best friends all the time. But Zadariussmith, he needs to prove it. What does prove it mean? 9, 10, 11 sacks off the outside linebacker position would do a lot of good. I wish he could get to 12 or 13. I like his chances of proving it. Zadariussmith, a feared defender in this league, and he's got his coach back that made him that. So that's good. Zadariussmith, number 4. Number 3, partner in crime, Daniellehunter. He needs to prove it. He needs to prove he can stay healthy. Although that last injury was a freak injury, so was his other one. But I think he's over the back injury, and now the pec injury is not a career threatener like the back injury was. But he needs to prove it. He needs to prove it that he can be on this team. He can play outside linebacker. If anybody has there's nobody that has more to prove, except for 2 other guys on this list, than Daniellehunter. Okay, number 2. This is kind of a no-brainer. This guy has so much promise, and we had such high hopes for him, and he looks so good in preseason, and that is Irvsmithjr. He has all the talent in the world to be a really good tight end in this league. I like him. I like him a lot. I hope he balls out this year. I hope he stays healthy. He's also in a contract year, much like Alexander Mattison, so a lot to prove for his future. I think the Vikings want him to be a Viking for a long time. only if he's healthy, and that's where he's at. Irvsmithjr, breakout season or bust? I want the breakout season. Number 2, Irvsmithjr. Number 1, everybody's favorite. Everybody knows that this guy has to prove so much, and he hasn't done it yet at all. And we want him to. I want him to. Some have given up on him. Number 1, Garrettbradbury. Number 1 pick, man. Middle of the round, too. And we need this guy to ball out, man. We need him to play, great pass defense, or at least good. And to stop being a traffic cone out there. I would love to see Garrettbradbury not get pushed back in Kirk Cousins' lap on a play-by-play basis. Apparently he's good at run blocking, and he's smart, and he makes the right checks and all that. So other guys can do that. Come on. I want him to pass protect. Hopefully this extra 10 pounds does it for him. Garrettbradbury needs to prove it. And a recap: Kirk Cousins, number 10, Eric Kendricks, 9, djwonnum, 8, Alexander Madison, 7, 6, Dalvin Tomlinson, number 5, Ezra Cleveland, number 4, Zadariussmith, 3, Daniellehunter, 2, Irvsmithjr, 1, Garrettbradbury. That's it for today. Minnesota Vikings. Let's go. This is Minnesota Sports Talk. I'm your host, Dave. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Skull World. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment so you can enter my contest. Just go down there and type Skull, for the heaven's sake. I'll reply back to you. Let's do this. Let's get this community growing. See you next time. Skull Vikings.